broadcast where we go through our the chosen television season. Yeah, and then you're a lot better when you're in the other room because at least I can monitor that a little bit. I don't need you interrupting every time I'm trying to make a pitch. Okay, so back on track. So, but yeah, we discuss the chosen. Season 3, episode 4 tonight. So it's cool. So we're going to go ahead and get right into that. And so we will be right back. Wrong scene. There it is. There's the right scene. Hey, that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know where I went wrong on that one, Val. So you don't have to give me a lot of grief. Yeah. So good to see you guys. I'm glad you're here with us tonight. So
good to be here.
Yeah. I know that your daughter just recently had a baby and she's been going through a lot of challenges, but we just are praying for her continued improvement. So the baby's doing fine. Just the mom needs a little extra prayers at this stage in the game. So, but let's go ahead with our conversation here tonight about the chosen. First of all, let me just ask you guys about your general thoughts of this particular episode.
Well, I have to say I liked it so much I cheated, so I went to part 2 and watched that one also.
Yeah, this is a 2-parter, but yeah, it's really a great story. It's really what it amounts to. So, Lorene, how about for you?
I had never even thought about what the disciples must have been thinking that first time out. Mm-hmm. I just said, oh, they just healed and learned a few things on the way, but it was so cool to watch like their expressions and oh my gosh, we did this, or look, I don't know, it was just really well done, showing them doing the miracles.
Yeah, Nikki, any thoughts?
I liked little James' expressions when he healed.
Yes, me too.
So, yeah, it's cool. A cool episode. And so, Janice is monitoring the comments. So if you
on the chosen page.
Yeah, on the chosen page. And so, if you have any comments that are coming in.
Kathleen says it's not her favorite episode.
But the next one, next part to it, you change your tune, Kathleen.
For sure.
This just kind of lays the foundation, and so the next one, it just kind of grabs you by the heart. So, but yeah, how about you? No comments.
Passing.
Huh? You're passing. You don't get to pass. Everybody else had to comment.
No.
I'm calling on you. I'm calling on you in class, Janice. So, okay. So, well, let's go ahead and we will look at the questions. So it says the opening of this episode begins with the apostles working miracles after Jesus sent them out 2 by 2. What do you think that experience was like the first time that they worked a miracle? Do you think the chosen did a good job of capturing these moments? Yeah, I see heads nodding. That what would that have been like? If you put yourself in their shoes,
unbelievable. Like what?
Yeah. I think I'd be doubting.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's gonna happen, and then when it did,
they were shocked.
Yeah.
Very, very shocked. Yeah. I think they were very shocked, and to know that they had that much power to do the healing that Jesus
Yeah.
gave them. So they had to been. So it's unbelievable. Shock is a good word.
Yeah, yeah. That
Mm.
yeah, I love the way that they treated that in the opening montage
Me too.
of the series. You know, the preaching part was, well, the preaching part was interesting. That it was really, you know, the first time you did a miracle, realizing it's not your power, but it's been delegated to you. You said, "Whoa," you know, it must have been just.
And in some of them, it looked like they were like saying to the other, because, okay, in case people haven't seen it, there's no talking at all, no
Yeah.
dialogue at all through this whole entire thing. But, like, it looks like they're looking at, he looks at the other one like, get the oil.
And Matthew
Yeah.
throws it from a bar.
He throws it. He throws
And
it,
I
and then he steps
guess
back.
so.
Steps back as fast as he can.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
And I guess the way they captured it in black and white, I thought that was really,
Yeah.
really cool that they
Mm,
first opening was all done that way. So it just
Yeah.
gave you the sense of almost like being there too.
Yeah.
That was good.
yeah. Yeah. So here's one comment here. I don't know. You know who these folks are that I said
No,
that-
because they're on someplace else.
someplace else. Okay, but it says that shocking, exhilarating. They did a good job, although some of it made me laugh, like when the woman in bed popped up.
Yeah, it scared him.
When she was. Yeah. So, you know, and coming back to the Matthew comment, is that here undoubtedly the person was demon possessed, and that and so he's keeping his distance, but it's kind of like, well, the same God who's able to cast the demon out is the same God who can protect you in that in that circumstance. But you know, I mean, let's face it; these guys were humans, and they were processing a lot of this as they were going along. And so, but yeah, it's a great opening. It is a little bit of a slow burn, this particular episode, but yeah, it all comes to culmination in the next part. So, but so the second question here is that what do you think went through the minds of the apostles as they began teaching and healing in Jesus' name? How might this have strengthened their faith? In what ways could it have posed a challenge for them? What do you think?
I
Do I
mean,
just have to-
they
go ahead.
started getting more confident. You know, they were starting to go, okay, we can do this, and let's get out there and let's just really talk about this Messiah and you know the power that He's given us. But then when they're back at the table, you know, talking, I think I can't remember which character said something about thinking that the power was from them and
Yeah.
being prideful. You know, becoming prideful that, oh, look what we get to do. You know, look what
Yeah.
we did instead of, no, this was Jesus working through us. You know,
Yeah. And so that's really where the problem, you know, they had to keep in mind, as one commenter makes, that it's Jesus working through them and not them doing it. And I think that's true not only of the miraculous aspects of ministry, but in many aspects of ministry, where the results are really a work of God rather than your own competencies. Lorraine?
well, I remember way back in the day, in my young Christian days, when I was getting trained, and we were trained in door-to-door evangelism. And boy, is that a scary thing. You know, I wouldn't even do it nowadays, but you know, dumb old me went out on these teams, and we went door to door trying to talk people about Jesus. And I remember most of the time it was, we're not interested, or they wouldn't answer the door. Once in a blue moon, we got invited in. And once in a bluer blue moon, someone was receptive.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was sort of an incredible thing because we'd gotten so much no, and we finally got a yes, and it was just, I'm like, okay, God must have just set this up, and I just happened to be here at the right moment. But
Mm-hmm.
I could see how you could get very, really proud of the way you ministered to this person or whatever. And it really was just, we were just witnesses to God's greatness in that. And I mean, it was spectacular when it happened, but it really didn't happen very often.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I believe it's the Navigators. I can't remember for sure, but I think it's them. But they have a good definition of witnessing. Is that evangelism is that witnessing is sharing Christ in the power of the Holy Spirit and leaving the results up to God.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know. And so
Good one.
it's not your ability to persuade, but that's not to discount the importance of preparation and being equipped. There's a great passage of scripture in the book of 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15 that it says, set apart Christ as Lord in your hearts and always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that you have, yet do this with gentleness and respect. There's that gentleness and respect part where a lot of Christians fall down, is because they get argumentative and defensive. But also, and the other part is that a lot of times we're not really prepared with a good answer to the questions that people bring our way. So how about Judas? How do you think it impacted him? What do you think? Do I have to call on one of you guys?
I
don't
didn't
know.
have an answer.
How we're thinking of him now, I'm thinking, was he thinking how he can capitalize on this? I don't know. I'm trying not to think that way because I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't know.
It was
Go ahead.
it was interesting when they were around the table recapping, and Judas was like the only one who was the most clear-headed, I thought, about the mission, about God working through them, which their show. I mean, we know what happens.
Yeah.
We know what happened to Judas, so it's hard for us to think back. But I think they're portraying it right. I just think somewhere maybe we're going to see where he turned the other way or something. But right now he seems to be the one that understands the best of all of them.
Yeah. I don't think that he was bad from the start. That which is kind of a cautionary tale for all of us when it comes to just making small compromises can take us way off target. And certainly that's what happened in Judas's case. So it says, what effect do you think that the message of the apostles and miracles that they performed had on the communities that they visited? Anyone? Me? Well, I'll tell you what I think is that I think that it obviously had an impact. You couldn't see something like that and then just deny its reality. And so I think that it did play a role in the people responding. What?
One thing that I was going to say, even on last time, what ways it could have been a challenge, but I think that it could go with how it affected their communities was, when it showed Simon Peter and I forget who he's paired with, but they went there and it looked like a Satan worshiper or whatever was talking to the big group of people. And they were walking up to individual ones and calling them over and talking to
Yeah.
them and everything, and you could see, you know, like more and more were coming over toward them, and I would think that would cause them problems in their community, and
Yeah.
maybe and affect also the community in a positive way, if you know, like it's drawing them away from maybe what they would normally listen to. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's hard for us to really, and I think that we get maybe a flavor of this in really not in our generation so much anymore, because there's very few places in the world that have not heard the gospel message, and so there's this kind of this difference that is made. But in places where people just followed their own kind of like shamanism, you know, indigenous religions, and you know, going with that type of stuff, it probably did in different places get pretty dark or pretty you know, wild, and that was the world that the apostles began evangelizing in. It was a place where, you know, certainly there was Judaism, but the Jewish religion was not really largely evangelistic. But wherever they would go, that they were confronting religions and practices and things that were pretty radical, probably compared to even what we typically think of in our times. And so I think that there is a positive. I think that we're beginning to see at least a positive leavening effect. We live in a a world, you know, the AD world, and while that was emerging in their day, that we don't have really a good sense of what life must have been like in those communities, and you know, with those in that world, in that particular world. So
Lorene.
go ahead, Lorene.
I went on one mission trip to the Bahamas, and we traveled by bus. We were on a bus. Our group was on a bus, and we had the local pastor was with us, and we were having some downtime and having lunch and all that. And some of the people just kept pressing him for stories, and I don't know why people are so interested in that dark side. I would have preferred not to hear it, because he told us some stories, and I'm like, this is the 20th century. How can this be? How can there be that dark, that true demon possession stuff? And it's like, it was very scary to me. And I wasn't scared for me in my belief, but I sure don't want to be around it. I don't want to be anywhere near that stuff. But for some people, it's still really, really real. In this day. And it's, I don't even know. I can't even, it was indescribable what he was telling us. And he hesitated to tell us. But some of the guys just kept pushing him, and he told a few stories, and it's like, it was like a story you'd read from like a book. It was horrible. And I was like, just God protect me. I don't want to, So I know it's real. I know it's real. Even in this day.
When you went to Africa, right?
Yes.
With us.
I get confused.
I didn't get the same sense there, though, that I did in the Bahamas. I did not get that same darkness in Africa that I felt in the Bahamas.
And I went there a couple times, at least a couple times. I think a couple times, maybe more too. But on one of the home visits, that they had these flags out in front, and I asked Stanley, who is the director of that ministry, I said, "What's this all about?" And he says, "Well, those are spirit poles." And so there are, you know, there's they essentially fly those flags out in front of the home to ward off the evil spirits and things like that. Were you on that visit? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, okay. So, our next question here is that Jairus, the synagogue leader, is beginning to entertain the legitimacy of Jesus and his ministry. What do you think it would have been like to be someone in his position having such thoughts? How might this impact his life in a positive or negative way?
Really scary, I think.
Yeah, okay. Elaborate a little bit on that.
Because the other Pharisees, how they're portrayed in this, were not thinking that way at all. And they were doing everything to catch him in any little, law breaking. They wanted to get him put away, and he's, entertaining just the opposite. That gave him a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, his livelihood is dependent on conformity, So it was
And
Go ahead, Mel.
well, I like this part of the show there too, because we saw a different part of Jairus from the earlier shows where he was. You didn't see this side of him. He was when he was talking to Yasef
Yeah.
earlier. It was just he was straightforward, and and then to see this part of him, and you knew he was changing his mind, and then you knew it was going to be dangerous for him too. So, and but I did like this part of the show to see that him changing.
Yeah, he'd been peeking at the reports.
Yeah. And did you notice that on doors, like they don't talk behind closed doors? People are always walking by, and there's this open doorway, and they're talking about this really serious document. And everybody's around.
Yeah. One commenter says that he was putting himself and his family at risk, and that she liked that, or they liked that experience too. And that's true. I mean, that as you're kind of like moving up the food chain, it's one thing to be, lack of a better term, a commoner, and particularly a commoner who has some sort of need and hoping that Jesus is going to meet that need. But then as you become kind of in the professional religious class, who Jairus is a member of, is that he just can't not easily run that risk, because there's, it puts his family at risk, puts his livelihood at risk, and his reputation, number 6. When a couple is committed to the ministry, as Eden and Peter are, how might this bring special challenges to their relationship and home life? Is this really any different from what other couples face?
I don't know.
Oh, well, we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing it now?
You don't know?
Well, I know. 1976.
49.
Huh? 49 years?
Mm.
Really? Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, 49 years in ministry. And what special challenges does the ministry...
You know how it betrayed it in this show? Mm-hmm. That is not a ministry and a husband and wife thing. That is a husband and wife thing. It's a man-woman thing that you could change all the furniture around, hang new things on the wall, and you say, oh, do you like it? And he's like what? Oh, is that different? Oh, I didn't notice. I thought it was always there.
Just tell her she's right.
Yeah. Who was that told him to do that? I can't remember.
Was it Andrew?
No, the guy who
the Roman soldier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Guys.
Yeah. Just tell her she's right. I'm
5
sorry.
things.
Yeah. What were the 5 things? Do you
Is
remember?
that I'm
You are right.
sorry. You were right. I am sorry.
You are right. I'm sorry.
Lorene, go ahead.
All right. I can speak from this from both sides, both from being in the ministry when
Mm-hmm.
both of us were in the ministry, and when one of us was in the ministry, and neither of us are in the ministry. It's all
Yeah.
about communication. Really, I know ministry couples. It's a little different with ministry couples only because people are watching them closer.
Yeah.
Like you have to like put on this face when you're in the ministry and you're having problems. You usually have to just put on a face.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if you're out in the world, I guess you can go to the bar or whatever. You don't have to hide it so much. But it's communication. Like Jana said, it's the same no matter what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. It's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think that like I could really relate with her because she could have communicated it to him. She could have told him, but she wanted him to notice, you know. And a lot of times I think that's what women do. They like if your woman friend came over, she'd be like, "Oh wow, you changed this. How cool!" You know, they would notice immediately. And so with a lot of times with men, you think, why do I have to explain it? Can't they just figure it out? You know, and I think that sometimes women feel like that they don't feel loved because their man doesn't notice these things. You know, or even like when she's mad,
Mm-hmm.
he can't figure out. You're going to take a nap while I go haul water, make bread for everybody that you invited over that I didn't even know were coming, you know, all that. And he's like, yeah, well, I'll see you after my nap. Why are you mad? Is something wrong with you?
Yeah. So, you know, and that's true in other occupations too.
Yeah,
But,
I think it is.
But by on one hand, there is the kind of that expectation, and I know that it's true in other occupations, but where, you know, if there's that tension, it's not supposed to be shown
Right.
in the ministry.
Right. And we're in a really small church. And so, like, every job that needs somebody, Carrie goes, Janice, you can do this. You can run the sound. You can teach Sunday school. You can go pick up people. You can, you know, put the food all together. You can do it all.
Hey, Val runs the sound.
Well, if Val's not there, who do you call?
I have tried to enlist you a couple
Yeah.
times. You know, that doesn't go over too well.
I have done it.
I know that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go over. It doesn't go over too well.
I'm like, I'm supposed to be teaching Sunday school.
Yeah. So,
But I do think that that's kind of a mentality of like churches, even because I thought, oh, this can't be happening anymore. But I saw a younger minister's wife, and they were applying for a job, and they asked if she could play the piano. I thought those days were over.
yeah, 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, really, you know. So okay. And you know, and to a certain degree, with the Peter Eden story that's developed in The Chosen, is that there is kind of a 2 for the price of 1 in that one, because their house is kind of the landing place,
Right.
you know.
He didn't call ahead.
the crash pad,
Yeah.
you know. So
And later on, Eden is washing all their clothes.
Right? And he sneaks in and scares her to death.
Yeah. So, you know, what was God thinking when he put the sexes together? You know, I mean, seriously.
Geez, Gary, he's having fun and she's working her butt off.
I'm posting that one. So, yeah. So, yeah. You know, so it is. It's just it's difficult. And so, and we'll see as the as the show progresses, is that it even gets more complicated along the way. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but Val, of course, has cheated and has gone on to
I've seen
the
it.
next episode. So, so,
It
but
was
no
good.
comments. Yeah, no comments about the next episode. So, let's
Okay.
see. There you go. Okay. The apostles struggled to make sense of their experiences of healing and teaching. John says, "So some of it was confusing, James. Can you live with that until we get understanding? Often there are things about Christianity that we don't immediately understand. How much of a challenge is it for you when you don't understand some important things about your faith?"
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's not a lot of questions, it's just a lot of words, you know. So, but how about it for you when you don't understand some stuff, important stuff about your faith? How big of a challenge is that for you?
I ask you.
I am kind of the family concordance, right?
Yes.
You know, and if you don't know what a concordance is, well, then look that up. But yeah,
I'll say, you know that verse? It says this kind of, but I don't know where it's at. And he's like, blah, right there.
not always, but I normally can find them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, but I'll speak for myself because this has kind of like been one of the major themes of my my Christian experience, and I don't know what it is about me, but I have a really hard time when there's things that I don't understand. And there were times in our life and even in our marriage where I early on, particularly when I was just really questioning whether I was going to continue on in the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you weren't too happy about that. No. So, but I finally got to the place in my life where I decided that I'm going to quit believing what I believe, or find out if there's any good reasons to do that, to believe that. And that actually has set me on like a probably almost a 50-year journey of researching that. There's actually a whole discipline within Christian theology that is devoted to that. I didn't know that at the time, you know, and the types of questions that I had, I felt that for sure that you know, real Christians don't have these types of questions. But it's interesting because God used that in my life to really cause me to go deeper in trying to sort those things out. And now I think I'm pretty well equipped to help people who are having those same struggles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that and so it's interesting how God uses those things. But there comes there's a time in my experience where I have to kind of like put some of those questions in abeyance. So I just put them on hold. And sometimes I really don't get the answer for years. You know, I was grappling with one particular knotty, Knotty question. You know, not naughty question. but one that I just couldn't figure out, and I didn't know where to find it. The good news is that there are people who have already researched these types of things. But the bad news is how do you find them? And so, but ultimately, I was able to kind of like sort some of that stuff out. So, And interestingly enough, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but too late for that, is that the Chosen helped me to kind of sort through some of that, you know.
Someone says you have helped so many people, Terry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Those words of encouragement, you know. So, and I'm glad to be of help. Hey, by the way, I'm just going to put a plug in for it. Now, you never know until the sermon happens on Sunday, but I really liked preparing for this one, and so well, hopefully, you know, you can normally watch it on the same channels that you're watching this broadcast, or catch the replay. But and it was cool because it's a story I've read I don't know how many times in the Bible. But I thought, but this time I said, whoa, when did they sneak that one in? You know? You know? So okay. According to Jewish law, the woman with the issue of blood could be ritually unclean, which in effect made her an outcast in society. And by the way, it's important to understand that ritual uncleanness is not the same thing as moral uncleanness. Yeah. Is that it just means that she could not participate in particularly in a religious culture, in much, if not most, of that social life. And so, what emotional toll might this take on a person?
It's huge because everybody needs a place to belong. And, you know, she had this issue for 12 years. That's a long time to be alone. Like, and so to me, it's really cool to see Eden befriending her because, you know, it's like she's been alone. She has to do everything by herself. And then no one even will help her because she's unclean. And I just know belonging is really important to human beings, and when you can't do that, then it's desolate and it's desperate, and it must be so lonely. It must have been so lonely for her.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, is that it says that that it could destroy your mental health. Even her parents did not welcome her.
And I know that whenever anything's wrong with my body, you know, and especially if the doctors aren't helping you and stuff, you worry and you try to make sense of it in your head and you try to take care of yourself and do all these things, and it's just frustrating and scary.
Yeah. So it does say, I'd have to double check, but in the scriptures I think it says that she spent all that she had
It does.
on
Medical bill.
Yeah, on doctors, and nobody could help her. So how frustrating is that? Not only are you an outcast, but now you're impoverished, you know. So yeah. So you made an important comment that Lorene, about a place to belong, and we're going to be talking about that next week, because there's you know, this is a two-parter, and so not that I want to kind of put a teaser out there, but next week it really kind of brings a lot of things to resolution. It says, I liked her response to Eden, saying that she hadn't lost all hope, you know, and you know, that I've heard it said before, and preachers like to say it a lot, is that you can last about, you know, 40 days without food, 3 days without drink, 5 minutes without oxygen, but not one moment without hope. You know, and so that's not original to me. I steal all of my best stuff.
We know.
Yeah. So 81 times in the Gospels, Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man, a title carrying great significance according to the prophet Daniel. Read Daniel 7, 13, and 14. How controversial do you think was it for Jesus to refer to himself this way? Any ideas?
They sure were upset.
Yeah, let me read the that text, because when you see the text there in Daniel, that you can kind of get the reason why they were so upset about it. But in Daniel 13 and 14, it says, so Daniel lived about 500 years before Jesus. That's important to bear in mind. And so as my vision continued that night, I saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient One, that's talking about God, and was led into his presence. He was given authority, honor, and sovereignty over all the nations of the world, so that people of every race and nation and language would obey him. His rule is eternal. It will never end. His kingdom will never be destroyed. So, when all of a sudden you start referring to yourself as the Son of Man, non-Jewish readers of the scriptures, and particularly non-Jewish readers of the scriptures who live in our time, but they don't, they look at Jesus calling himself the Son of Man, and he's kind of like saying, yeah, I'm one of you guys. But no, he's saying, I'm not one of you guys. There's something radically different about me. And so no wonder the
He didn't like it.
yeah. So finally, that Peter is exasperated with how things are going and the strain that the ministry is putting on his marriage and home life. Do you think that any of the apostles actually felt that way? Explain. So here again, this is just something that they worked into the script. So, but what do you think? You think they were ever exasperated?
Yeah. I mean, they're human.
Yeah.
It wasn't just sunshine and lollipops all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially how they lived back then. It would have to be stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when Jesus told them, to go and do all these things and don't take any food with you or any money or anything. And, just that would be stressful,
Mm-hmm.
You just really have to trust that God's going to take care of you in that situation. Mm-hmm. And then when he said, well, we really didn't have an awful lot to eat,
Yeah.
It's like,
And even, and was it in this episode where they talked about the prospect of dying, where Jesus kind of brought that up about the prospect of dying, or was that the episode before?
Episode before.
Yeah. Okay. So, but all of a sudden it's getting real, not only for Jesus, but for them, so,
and plus, like, that whole theme of not understanding, it's like they're still they aren't going to understand for a while. We all know, that they still have a long way to go before they get the understanding. Mm-hmm. But, to me, that has to be super hard, is to not understand, to be asked to do these things, but not understand it all, which, I guess we can identify with that, because, we got enough going on in our lives, and I don't understand why certain people have to go through whatever, it just doesn't seem right to me, and, especially when you get older, everybody around you starts having really problems. And it's just so hard. It's so hard to not, and I know God has a purpose, and I trust that. It's just, I don't get it sometimes. I just don't get why there has to be that kind of suffering.
And it just like now is just like when Jesus was on the earth. He didn't explain things really, he just said, follow me, trust me, do what I tell you to do, and he doesn't give us any insights really either. And sometimes it's just scary.
Yeah, and and a lot of times he would say things that in retrospect, as we read the Gospels, we say, oh, that's pretty clear,
On this
But-
side of it, yeah.
But when he's talking about dying and things like that, they thought, yeah, this ain't gonna happen, and this has to be one of those crazy Jesus sayings that don't make any sense
Right.
until everything kind of caves in on them.
Right.
You know?
It's not like they knew. They were shocked at everything that happened.
Yeah, in the crucifixion,
Yep.
it's not like they say, "Oh yeah, this is all part of God's plan."
No, they were
They're thinking,
desperate.
We left everything for this. So, yeah. So, all right. Well, guys, any closing remarks or observations before we wrap up for tonight?
I just look forward to each episode. It's like I can't wait.
Yep, me too.
Did you?
Yeah, I
cheat
do too now.
Did
too.
you peek ahead?
It's really good.
Indeed, I did.
Guilty as
Me
charged.
too.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I've seen it before, but I have to rewatch it.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again for showing up this evening and being a part of our time together. And so I'll see you all next week, next Wednesday at 7:00. And hey, and if you can,
I won't be here.
yeah, you're going up to see your mom. Hey, say a prayer for Janice's mom too, because she's going through some stuff and some health issues, and and so it says see you next week, and I still love it, and I still love this, and can't wait for season
Kathleen.
4. So all right, guys. Hey, thanks again. I'm gonna wrap this thing up now.
Bye.
Bye bye. Hey, as we mentioned, that every Wednesday night at 7:00 we meet for our broadcasts on Discuss the Chosen, and I hope that you're able also to join us this Sunday for the message. I think that you will be blessed by that. I know I have, if nobody else is. So we'll have a chance to connect here soon. God bless you. Bye bye for now.